Yes, Shylily guesses that Cinder's shares will be bought out by the company Gamersupps. And I'm going to try and convince you of this narrative. Now, this video is going to have chapters and everything I'll be covering in the video has barely been covered, actually. I'm just bringing attention to the fact that Shylily said in public that she guesses Cinder's shares will be bought out by the company Gamersupps. So, before we begin, what is Gamersupps? Well, I went to the Gamersupps website, and it's essentially like drinkware, and you can get like powder to enhance your drinks. And like this is their merch store. You can go to the website if you want. I'll provide a link to the Gamersupps website if you'd like to check it out. But here is their mission. Gamersupps Incorporated epitomizes a paradigmatic entity at the intricate confluence of gaming nutrition and content creation, meticulously engineering products to address the hyper-specific and multifaceted demands of a globally dispersed cohort of gamers and content creators. Jesus Christ, what are these words? By synthesizing an exhaustive understanding of health dynamics with an unrelenting commitment to gaming culture, the organization redefines industry standards through its methodical and purpose-driven innovation. Followed by a disclaimer, these statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Well, that's, that's something to look at, I guess. But yeah, this is Gamersupps for drinkware and to drink stuff. You know, like they have like flavors and whatnot. So that's Gamersupps. So how does this go with the video theme today? Well, if you didn't know, Shylily and Sinder are both partial owners of Gamersupps. So Shylily announced that she became a partial owner of Gamersupps in January 2024, citing the company's trust and positive working relationship. This move was facilitated by her successful collaborations and sales performance with Gamersupps. And then Sinder also announced becoming a partial owner of Gamersupps in January 2025, expressing gratitude for the opportunity to partner with them. So Shylily became a partial owner in January 2024, last year, and then Sinder became a partial owner this year. Now, I'm going to show you a clip that is on a YouTube video. Well, it's a segment of a YouTube video. And yes, I have the transcript open because this VOD is 6.5 hours long. The segment I'm going to show you comes from the video VOD Back to Business, We Cooking More Drugs Today or Maybe Try Oblivion, Heart Emote, April 28, 2025 on the YouTube channel Shylily VOD. Now, here, if you go to here, if you can see it on the transcript, to hour 25 minutes 55 seconds, Shylily makes this statement.
Maybe off topic about what's going to happen with Gamersupps, I don't know, but I know that they're trying to find something to handle the situation. I don't know though. But obviously, they can't just say a drama pop up and be like, okay, bye. It's not how it works in a business way, sadly. It takes time. If I had to make a guess, her shares will simply be bought out. If I had to make a guess, I'm not saying this will happen. If I non-biased, non-Gamersupps opinion, if I had to make a guess, her shares will probably just be bought out. Done.
Shylily says this to the public. That is a very big statement since Shylily is a partial owner of Gamersupps. So I saw this and I was like, is that good ethical business behavior? Is this okay for a partial owner to go on the public and say that the other partial owner of the company, their shares might get bought out? Is that okay? I looked into it. I actually asked Google 4 questions because that was a very big statement that I encountered in the VOD. So, the first one that I asked Google, the first question I asked Google is good, I can't make sentences apparently, is good for partial owner to say that another partial owner's, well, alright, well, you can't see it because Google's silly. Alright, so I asked Google, is it good for a partial owner to say that another partial owner's shares will be bought out? And Google AI says, generally speaking, it's acceptable for a partial owner to suggest that the company buy out another partial owner's shares, but it's important to approach this situation carefully and consider the potential implications. Because now we're going into the business side of things. Forget about the whole drama thing. This is like money, this is business, this is a company we're talking about now. So here's why and what to keep in mind, according to Google. Reasons for suggesting a buyout, partner disagreement, life changes, maintaining business continuity, and then there's some important considerations. Buy-sell agreements, fair valuation, legal and financial implications, communication and negotiation. Then there goes on to say potential challenges, shareholder oppression, financial feasibility, impact on company operations and culture. And then they go on to say, in summary, suggesting a buyout can be a legitimate business strategy, but it requires careful planning, adherence to legal and ethical standards, and open communication with all parties involved. Navix Consultants emphasizes working with professionals to guide through difficult discussions and be an objective voice. So that's kind of just the general thing. So I asked Google again, is it okay, is it good for a partial owner to say that another partial owner's shares be bought out by a company? And generally speaking, it's acceptable. So now I switched up the question. I then asked, is it bad for a partial owner to say that the company will buy out the other partial owner's shares? I said that. And clearly I can't spell. Anyway, Google says, a partial owner, especially if they're also a director or officer, should be cautious about making definitive statements that the company will buy back the shares of other partial owners. This is because such a statement could have negative consequences, including breach of fiduciary duty. A partial owner in a leadership position may owe fiduciary duty to the other owners, shareholders, or members. This duty requires them to act in the best interest of the company and all its owners, not just their own. Promising a share buyback without proper authorization or consideration of the company's financial health could be considered a breach of this duty. Legal action. If a partial owner makes a promise to buy back shares that isn't fulfilled, the affected owners may have grounds for legal action. This should be based on claims of misrepresentation or violation of shareholder agreements. Damage to relationships. Making such a promise without the authority to back it up can damage trust and lead to conflict among the owners. As if there wasn't enough conflict already. Factors to consider. Authority, company's financial situation, impact on other owners, shareholder agreement, and fair valuation. And then Google goes on to say, instead of making definitive statements, a partial owner should communicate and clearly and honestly, follow the proper procedures, seek legal advice. That's what a partial owner should do and stuff like this. And then they wrap it up by saying, in summary, while it might seem helpful to assure another owner that the company will buy their shares, doing so without proper authority and considering the potential repercussions can be harmful. It's crucial for partial owners to act responsibly and transparently when discussing such matters, prioritizing the company's well-being and the rights of all owners. So that's the second question I asked Google. Now, here's where I change it up. I then say, is it considered bad for a partial owner to say that the company will buy the other owner's shares in public? The only thing that changed was I added public into it. I asked if it's bad. Is it considered bad for a partial owner to say that the company will buy the other partial owner's shares in public? So instead of them saying it behind closed doors, this is now saying it to the public. So what does Google say? Saying in public that the company should buy out another partial owner's shares is generally not considered a good idea. Here's why. Potential negative consequences. Damaging business relationships. Publicly expressing a desire to buy out a co-owner can create significant conflict and erode trust between the parties involved, making future collaboration and negotiations much more difficult. Legal implications. Depending on the business structure and any existing agreements, public statements could potentially trigger certain legal processes or disputes related to the buyout, such as those related to shareholder rights or valuation. Undermining company stability and value. Public talk of a potential buyout can create uncertainty and speculation about the company's future, which can negatively impact morale among employees and potentially affect its overall market value. potential for increased shareholder activism. Negative public sentiment, potentially fueled by public statements about internal disputes, can lead to increased shareholder activism and pressure on the company's leadership. Here are some better alternatives. Private negotiation, formal buy-sell agreement, mediation or arbitration. In summary, while a partial owner may suggest a buyout in public, it's typically best to handle such sensitive matters privately and through formal channels to avoid detrimental impacts on the business and its stakeholders. Okay. Based on this, Shylily did bad. She publicly stated that she guesses that Sinder shares will be bought out by Gamersupps. That is a bad move. And she guesses. You shouldn't do that. That's really bad. Even Google says that. Now I changed it up. I did a final thing. I said this. Is it considered good for a partial owner to say that the company will buy out another partial owner's shares in public? And Google's like, in general, it's considered not a good practice for a partial owner to publicly state that the company should buy out the other partial owner's shares. Here's why. Potential for negative impact on business. Disruption and uncertainty. Publicly announcing a potential buyout can create uncertainty and anxiety among employees, customers, and other stakeholders. Damage to business relationships. It can harm relationships between the partial owners and create tension or conflict within the company. Negative financial impact. In a publicly traded company, such an announcement can significantly impact the stock price, potentially causing it to drop. Loss of business opportunities. It can signal instability or a potential sale, which may make suppliers, customers, or investors hesitant to engage with the company. Better communication channels and processes exist. Private and confidential discussions, formal agreements, legal counsel. Alternative approaches. Open and honest communication, negotiation and agreement, mediation or legal intervention if necessary. In summary, publicly suggesting a buyout can have negative consequences for the business and is not the recommended way to handle ownership changes. Open communication, formal agreements, and legal counsel are essential for a smooth and successful transition. So, with all that verbiage out of the way, let me try and sum this up, because this was a lot of business legal matters. So, I asked, let's just go over again. The first question I asked Google after that clip we saw with Shylily saying she guesses Sinder shares will be bought out by Gamersupps, I asked Google, is it good for a partial owner to say that another partial owner's shares will be bought out by the company? Google says it's acceptable, so it's fine. It's a business move, it's whatever. And then I asked, is it bad for a partial owner to say that the company will buy out another partial owner's share? Like, is it bad for a partial owner to say that another partial owner's shares will be bought out by the company? And then Google is saying, like, you should be cautious about making definitive statements about the company buying back shares of other partial owners. And then the next question I asked, third out of the four questions, is it considered bad for a partial owner to say that the company will buy out another partial owner's shares publicly? And Google says it's generally not considered a good idea because of the potential negative consequences of damaging business relationships, legal implications, undermining company stability and value, and potential for increased shareholder activism. And then the last question I asked was, is it considered good for a partial owner to say the company is going to buy out that other partial owner's shares? In general, it's not considered a good practice for partial owners. So, because of disruption and uncertainty, damage to business relationships, negative financial impact, loss of business opportunities. So that's basically what it was. Again, first question was, is it good for a partial owner to say that another partial owner's shares will be bought out by the company? It's fine, according to Google. Second question, is it bad for a partial owner to say that the company will buy out the other partial owner's shares? Google says, be cautious about that. The third question, is it considered bad for a partial owner to say that a company will buy out the other partial owner's shares? Not a good idea because of damaging business relationships, legal implications, undermining company stability and value, and potential for increased shareholder activism. And finally, the fourth and final question I asked, which is it considered good for a partial owner to say that the company will buy out that other partial owner shares publicly? And Google says it's not a good practice. So, with all that being said, and all that gibberish being done and all, what does this mean? It means that, yes, Shylily guesses that Sinder's shares will be bought out by Gamersupps, as shown in the segment of the VOD. Also, Shylily did a very bad business move, because by stating what she said publicly about guessing that Sinder's shares will be bought out by Gamersupps, it could cause disruption and uncertainty, damage to business relationships, negative financial impact, loss of business opportunities, legal implications, potential for increased shareholder activism, and potentially undermine company stability and value. So, with that being said, all of the sources I used for this video will be in the description below. I encourage you, the viewer, to go to the source so that way you can make your own independent conclusion.